Hello everyone, and welcome to my review for Kengan Omega Chapter 126. Before I get into this week's review, I of course have to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons. Special thanks to Fuse, Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Scratch23, Rat, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, and Wave of Manga. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get a shout out at the start of videos or access to reviews for solo leveling and the Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. Of course, if you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe. It would be a big help. I've noticed only about a third of you are subscribed, so you should probably change that. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get on with the review. This week's chapter is pretty good. It's got a lot of fight, and that's sort of ingrained with a lot of information. This is a big info dump explanation chapter, and we start off with Kiryu explaining what Divine Demon is. Now, I really like this chapter because it has something that I really enjoy. Not just in Kengan, but just kind of in general, and that's being correct about something. Kiryu confirms that Divine Demon is indeed a combination of Fallen Demon and Advance. I called it a few weeks ago. Glad to see that the less insane person was the person to prove it. So yeah, Kiryu actually mentions that he's changed from the Annihilation Tournament. I'm wondering how much we're going to see of how that happened. I don't know. But he is confused as to why Faye isn't literally exploding from the burden of using both Divine Demon and Advance at the same time. So anyway, we get back to the fight. Waka just keeps getting knocked down by a lot of Faye's attacks, but Waka just keeps on getting back up. Faye compares him to a boss in an RPG who has a shit ton of health, but just does like the same moves over and over again, so you just kind of keep whittling him down over time without really any kind of difficulty. So now we have the return of the narrator, who has been sorely missing for a lot of Omega, to be honest. So good to see that the narrator's back, and he is here to explain part of Faye's backstory. Faye's backstory and the backstory of Divine Demon. It has way greater output than both Advance and Fallen Demon, but as a result, the drawback, the recoil on the body, is even greater than using removal. So like the shit that was happening to Lu Tien, that's garbage compared to what the ramifications on anyone else's body should be with what Faye is using. So now we see that Tiger Nico had recruited the Tiger's Vessel candidates from doing a giant goo ritual. Like a fucking huge one. 4,000 people. You're sure to find some good candidates. And what's interesting about this goo ritual is, unlike the one that Agito and Lu Tien were in, there was not just one survivor. Presumably because this was a much bigger ritual, they ended off with having 50 people left, so he taught the Advance and Fallen Demon to all 50 of those people, but only 3 of them could survive. And those were, of course, Faye and Longmin and Ranjo, the other Guardian who knew Advance. However, even though those 3 were the ones that were able to use those techniques without any of the drawbacks like Oma was having during the first and second rounds, Faye was the only one who could use Divine Demon. And Faye proclaims himself to be the greatest student of Tiger Nico, and that he is the next Tiger. I'm sure this pisses off Lu Tien to no end, if he's not dead, or is even conscious at the moment. And you know what? I feel inclined to believe him. If you threw this Faye into the Annihilation Tournament, I feel there's a fairly decent shot he could win. I do think Faye is one of those characters where, you know what? I could maybe see him beating Kuroki under certain circumstances. He's that fucking strong. Of course, he's not completely invincible. And Julius is still certain that Wakatsuki is going to pull through. As we find out that Faye used too much of Divine Demon. He's been using it for way too long. He's been putting way too much output on his body, and he reduces the output a bit. And Waka was waiting for this moment because he knew this is not something that you can use forever. There's a reason you only use it some of the time, other than you looking really fucking gross when you use it, and that would be really weird for you to, like, go out in public and do stuff looking like this all the time. It's because your body can't handle it. So I'm gonna wait for you to, you know, cool it down a little bit, to stop using so much of Divine Demon, and that's when I'm gonna attack. So he tries to use these karate jabs that should really not be possible for someone of his weight, but he does them anyway, and Faye is surprised. So Faye uses Flashing Steel Smash, but, and this is the moment we've all been waiting for, Waka uses Blast Core. It's finally time to use the trump card. Does it work out? Well, not exactly. We get a little bit of a flashback of Faye hanging out with Tiger Nico. This is actually pretty cool, seeing them hanging out, Tiger Nico being, like, kind of a normal person. It's just kind of neat. And Tiger Nico is telling Faye that he should leave Purgatory after he reveals himself in a very flashy manner. And we find out that Faye is apparently older than he says. It's not said in the summary from Shadow King what exactly his age is, if it's said. I assume we're going to find that out eventually, one way or another, if it's said in this chapter, or, you know, we're going to find out from, like, a volume extra or something. But he's like, nah, you know, I've made friends with a lot of the people in Purgatory. I quite enjoy being there. I wonder if I could live a normal life as one of these sports fighters. Psych! Faye actually doesn't give a shit about any of that stuff. He doesn't care. Of course. It would have been kind of interesting if Faye actually did have some kind of sentimental feelings for Purgatory and the people in it. But nah, he's just an asshole. And it would have been kind of weird if he was saying earlier, like, Purgatory's a bunch of fucking chumps. Me being so strong has nothing to do with being in Purgatory. That'd be a little bit contradictory, especially since this occurred in the past. So yeah, he was just doing a mild amount of trolling in front of his teacher, which is pretty neat. So he goes limp to try and dodge Blast Core. He literally goes limp to disperse the impact against fucking Blast Core. And guess what? It actually kind of works. This new Nico-style technique is called Water Kata Dancing Snake, which is currently a temporary name. Shadow King, not a bad name. Like, Dancing Snake's pretty okay. It's not bad. It could work. I can think of maybe, like, a couple cooler alternatives, like Dancing Serpent, Serpent's Dance, Serpentine Dance, something like that. I don't know, you guys in the comments will probably also have plenty of suggestions. But yes, using Dancing Snake, Faye kind of dodges Blast Core. It still impacts him. He still gets hit in the chest with it, but, you know, goes limp, disperses the impact, and then kind of dodges under the rest of the punch. However, he's still bleeding a lot. He starts bleeding profusely from his mouth. And the chapter ends really abruptly, which suggests this may only be the first half of the chapter. I don't know. If that's the case, I assume we're ending next week. If not, that'd be really weird to, like, have a split-up chapter for not the end of the fight. I don't know, that'd be a little bit of a weird decision, in my opinion. A little strange. But, yeah. So, it looks like Waka has finally found a way to maybe beat Faye. Which is that Faye is relying really heavily on Divine Demon right now. It's not necessarily that he even needs it, he's just using it way too much. He's just too confident in it, and as a result, he keeps having breaks where he's deactivating it, and Waka's able to land Blast Cores. So maybe even then, like, if Faye wasn't using Divine Demon at all, getting hit by those Blast Cores would be a serious issue. Now maybe, if I look at the panel again, I don't remember if he dodged it while in Divine Demon or if he activated it after the fact. I'll have to take a look at it again. But we should remember, Waka has a chance. It's not a big chance. His chances of winning are not high, but they're there. We should also consider that Faye just got his flashback, but Waka hasn't gotten one yet. And the flashback's usually kind of important. I mean, to be fair, Nitoku didn't get his until almost the end of the fight, and he still lost, so that's no guarantee of Waka winning. But does mean he has a chance. I'm wondering what Wakatsuki has done to try and counter to counter Demon's Bane, Jesus Christ. Because Demon's Bane was the reason he lost to Oma. It's probably something he's been thinking about how to counter ever since his loss in the Annihilation Tournament, and he's probably assuming since Faye has the Nico style, he probably has Demon's Bane too. Now, at this point, it's probably safe to assume that Faye probably has something about his Demon's Bane that's either different from Oma's, or his Demon's Bane is literally just better somehow. I don't know. Maybe he enhances the damage of the Demon's Bane even more. But here's the deal. We have a very interesting setup for a very dramatic finish to the fight, which is Waka hits Faye with Blast Core, Faye uses Demon's Bane, and Waka tries to counter Demon's Bane. In my mind, I would imagine there's really only two ways to really counter Demon's Bane. You either do what Kuroki did, which was just kind of take it, but in such a way that it's not going to be a knockout blow, and then you just deliver a counter. Or alternatively is, I imagine you could try to dodge the attack and hit them while they're in the middle of using Demon's Bane. Because if they're in the middle of redirecting, they're not going to be able to redirect whatever you're hitting them with. It'll just be big damage. They won't be able to do anything about it. So I'm very curious and excited to see what's going to happen with the conclusion of this fight. I can see it ending next week, but I can also see it having another 2 chapters, so we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. With that, that's all I have to say for this week's review. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Kengan Omega chapter reviews every week. If you enjoy discussing Kengan Omega with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I've linked that down in the description. If you enjoy other series such as Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Record of Ragnarok, and Bleach, I do videos in those series as well, so if you're interested in those, you should definitely check out my channel. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys around, take care.